Hi, and welcome to our second lesson on using colors in P5.js. Uh, Today we're going to go over HSB, which is known as hue, saturation, and brightness. You may also see it referred to as hue, saturation, and value. So the last time we went over our RGB color scheme, where we said, hey, if I wanted to make a color, I can use my values from 0 to 255 for my red, green, and blue, and I can mix those different values to make the different colors that I see on the computer. The thing about using RGB is sometimes, hey, if I say, what is 100, 200, 30, I'm not quite sure what color I'm making unless I look up that color. So HSB kind of makes it a little bit easier for us to determine what color we're using. Now, there's no difference between using RGB or HSB or any other color schemes that you may see, whether it's a hexadecimal color or whatever. They're all the same color. It's just different ways of representing color. So when we talk about the hue, we're actually talking about the color that we're going to use. And we kind of refer to against the color wheel that's here. So if you look at both charts, we go from 0 to 360, representing each of the different colors on the color wheel. When we talk about the saturation itself, what we're talking about is how much of that color is in there. So if I want a lot of red, am I going to put all of my red? If I want a lot of yellow, am I going to put all of the yellow in there? So that's what the saturation refers to. And the brightness or the value just kind of depends on how bright it is. So if we want like a darker color, then we put less. And if we want, a more vibrant or, brighter color, then we're going to use more of that brightness. Um, so it's little bit different from when we use RGB, where we go from 0 to 255, and you'll see that in a little bit. When we use HSB, we're saying, hey, which color am I using on the scale of 0 to 360? So that first value is any number between 0 and 360. So I will choose, if I wanted some yellow, I can go somewhere in between here to get my shade of yellow. And again, it's any value from 0 to 360. And then the other two values, unlike RGB, which went from 0 to 255, go from 0 to 100. So it's saying, hey, how much of the saturation? Do I want 100% of that saturation, or do I want 50%, or no saturation? Do I want 100% of the brightness, or do I want another value? So again, unlike RGB, which values range from 0 to 255, HSB ranges for the first value from 0 to 360, and the second two values, they go from 0 to 100. So again, we're going to look at this in our code. So we're going to switch over to our P5 editor. What I've done is that I've included the code that we used the last time with our 3 ellipses here. And we're going to look at how we can use HSB. When we do HSB, we have to tell the computer that we're using HSB. Unlike RGB, which is the default for P5, so once you put a fill, it automatically defaults to that RGB colors. We have to say that, hey, I want to use HSB. And the way that we do that is in our setup, we're going to say color mode. And in all caps, we are going to say that we're using HSB so that the computer knows that we're switching from RGB to HSB. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to uncomment this one. So I'm going to fill this. And again, according to our color wheel, right? If I wanted a specific color, I would just choose what color I want, which makes it easier to determine what colors we're making, right? Unlike RGB, where it's just these values that we put together. So if I know I want to make like a red color, then I'm going somewhere on the wheel in between these values that are here. So if I wanted like that bright red, I choose 0, or if I wanted it a different range of red, I can go this way or that way. So we can say, hey, you know what, I want maybe 340, to kind of give it like a pink or some type of red closer to the more vibrant red. So I can say, hey, I want 340 for my first value. And remember, this first value can go from 0 to 360. And then the other two values are saying, hey, how much do you want? How much red do I want for the second value, right? So that saturation is how much. So we're going to put 100% first. And then the brightness, we're also going to put it at 100% and see how that looks. So now again, I wanted like a pink, but it still looks like red. So here's my color here. And again, we can switch it up if you say, hey, you know what? I want a different color. We can also choose a different color here. So that's my color. But let's look at if I change that saturation. And saturation, we said, is how much red is in there. So if I change this to 50%, then we see we've taken out some of that red color, and now it's kind of like a pinkish color, right? And if I say, let's take out some more, and I go 20%, again, we're taking out a lot of the color that's there. So let's put that back to 100%. And let's play with this value, the brightness. Remember, when we go lower, we're saying it's a darker color. And then when we go higher, we're saying it's not as vibrant. So you look at when I put it down to 50%, now we're getting a darker shade of that color that we have there. If I go even lower, so the brightness kind of says how much of that black do I have in there, or how much white do I want to put in there to make the color brighter. So put that back to 100%. And we can play around with both of them, right? So let's say I put this at 70 and I wanted this to be 50. So I'm taking out some of the red, but I'm making it darker as well. Or put this to 80 and I make this 60. And again, that's how we kind of like play around with the colors to kind of make that color that we want. So as we can see, HSB kind of makes it a little bit easier looking at the color wheel and saying, you know what, I want blue. So if I want blue, then depending on what shade of blue I want, if I wanted it to be like a more vibrant blue, or if I wanted it to be a lighter blue, then I can go in there and say, hey, I'm going to use, and again, it's not stuck to these values that you see within the circle here. You can do, hey, I want 190, or I want 200, and you can go over here and say, hey, I'm going to put a fill of 190, and I'm going to put 100%, 100%, and now I have that shade of blue. If I wanted to play around with how much blue in there, it becomes a little bit lighter. So again, here we see this is a different way that we can portray colors. So you're going to finish this code along, do the 3 ellipses with different shades of red, green, blue of your choosing, and then you're going to get to the activity. And